In this video, we're going to talk about the phase mitosis. Yesterday, we talked about the cell cycle. We talked about interphase, which is the cell getting ready for mitosis. And by the end of this video, you should be able to answer the question of what is mitosis, why does mitosis happen, and what are the phases of mitosis. Before we can really talk about mitosis, though, you have to understand what chromosomes are, and you have to understand what the function of a chromosome is. So in the next couple of slides, we're going to talk about chromosomes in a little more detail. Chromosomes form in order to be ready for mitosis. But what is a chromosome? Chromosomes are long strands of DNA wound up really tightly into structures that when looked at under a microscope kind of resemble an X. So here we have our DNA, and a chromosome would be this X down here. It's just a whole bunch of DNA wound up tightly. The structure of chromosomes is also important to understand. The first thing you need to know is what a sister chromatid is. So if this whole structure is one of your chromosomes, a sister chromatid is just one side of this structure, so one of the legs. Looking at this other picture over here, if this whole X-looking thing is your chromosome, a sister chromatid, again, is just one leg of the chromosome. Next, it's important to know what a centromere is. So again, if this whole structure is a chromosome, the centromere, center, is just the center of the chromosome. It's what's holding your two sister chromatids together. So the two sister chromatids are attached by a centromere, and a centromere is just what's in the center of a chromosome. Now that we've talked a little bit about the structure of chromosomes, that they are basically wound up DNA, what is the function of a chromosome is what we're going to talk about next. Chromosomes have one major function. Basically, rather than your DNA being loose and a whole bunch of string inside of your cells that could really go on for miles if it was completely unwound, chromosomes allow your DNA to be organized. It makes it easier when your cells want to go through cell division or mitosis, because it's easier to split up stuff that's organized rather than stuff that's a big ball or completely messy. So essentially, chromosomes work to organize your DNA to make mitosis easier. Humans have 46 sets of chromosomes. So inside each one of your individual cells, there are 46 pairs of chromosomes. This number varies for different organisms. So things like a banana might only have 23 chromosomes. A horse might have 36. All different organisms have different numbers of chromosomes. When we get to our segment on meiosis, we'll talk about what happens when the number of chromosomes gets messed up. It can cause a number of different genetic disorders, but for now, just remember, humans have 46 chromosomes. Try these 4 check yourself questions. If you can't answer questions 1 through 4, go back and make sure you find it in the video. Otherwise, write down the answers to these questions and then move on to the next section. Now that you understand what a chromosome is, we're going to talk about the purpose of mitosis. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. Mitosis is just the process of making new somatic cells. But what we didn't talk about yesterday was, first of all, what a somatic cell is. A somatic cell is any cell in your body that's not a sex cell. So basically, your skin cells are somatic cells, your heart cells, your liver cells, your bone cells, your brain cells even. Somatic cells are diploid cells, which means they have 2 copies of each chromosome, and you get 1 copy from your mom and 1 from your dad. When we talk about meiosis, we're going to talk about where sex cells get made, so where do eggs get made for females and sperm get made for males. But all other cells in your body besides egg and sperm are made through mitosis. The major thing you have to understand for this class about mitosis is the different phases. So there are 4 phases of mitosis: prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. One easy way to remember that is PMAT. Besides knowing what mitosis is and why it happens, The only other thing you're going to have to know is these 4 phases and what happens in each. The first phase is the longest phase, and it's called prophase. During prophase, chromosomes appear, so these X's start to be formed. Before that, your DNA is just very loose and more like strings. You couldn't even really see it under a microscope. Centrioles, which are the organelle responsible for cell division, start to move to opposite ends of your cell. So they're going to move to the top and bottom of a cell. And the nuclear membrane, so the thing surrounding the nucleus, is going to start to disappear. By the end of prophase, your cell would look something like this. So the centrioles are on opposite ends of the cell. There's no more nuclear envelope, but they're clear chromosomes. After prophase comes metaphase, which is actually the shortest phase. And all that happens in metaphase is your chromosomes line up in the center of the cell. Third phase is anaphase, and during anaphase, sister chromatids, so remember each leg of a chromosome, separate and move to opposite sides of the cell. So in this case, this sister chromatid and this sister chromatid are moving away from each other. Finally, after anaphase is a phase called telophase. During telophase, the cell starts to develop a dip, and the cell is really starting to divide. Chromosomes start to uncoil, so they no longer exist, and the nuclear membrane starts to reform. So telophase is when that actual visible separation starts to occur. At the end of the 4 phases of mitosis, there's a process called cytokinesis. And all that cytokinesis is the forming of 2 completely separate new cells. They both look exactly like the one you started with, but now they've completely separated. At this point, you should understand the phases of mitosis, and you should also understand what mitosis is and why it happens. Try these 5 check yourself questions. If you can't answer any of these questions, go back in your notes and re-watch parts of the video. Otherwise, answer these questions by writing them down, and you should understand mitosis, why it happens, the phases, and why it's important.